It's over 9,000!
Welcome, Super Elite Warriors, to Final Forum, a podcast for the discussion of all things Dragon Ball. I am your host, Jelli, an elite recruiting member of the Frieza Force on a mission to find the best warriors from across the galaxy to join the greatest army of all time, and I am joined, as always, by my new recruit co-host.
This is the Bekinney. Okay, wait. How are you not dead?
Last time we did an episode, you were saying I couldn't die from the attack and the explosion, so I didn't.
What? What do you mean?
Well, if someone on this show says that the other person can't die, then they can't.
Is that how you keep bringing me back every time I get brutally slaughtered?
No, that I can't explain. Perhaps nobody can.
Well, I could if you'd ever give me an opportunity
And
to...
there's no time to find out who possibly could, because we're jumping right into this week's topic.
I feel like this joke is wearing thin.
No joke. We're safely aboard our ship. I do still need some time to recuperate, and that means we're lounging in our screening room about to fire up a movie.
Not the joke I meant. You know what? Forget it.
Already forgotten. This week, we're taking a look at the first Dragon Ball Z movie, Dead Zone. Before we get into Dragon Ball Z proper and doing episodes, we're going to pop into this movie. This movie came out only like 2.5, 3 months into Dragon Ball Z airing, so I felt it was worthwhile / appropriate, whatever, to start here rather than get into episodes.
Makes sense. I mean, it's one of those, as we're going to get into, another one of those Manga Matsuri movies where this is kind of people's first taste of what Dragon Ball Z is supposed to be about. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right?
We think so. And I have the double feature Blu-ray of this movie, and I believe Bekinney has what the Funimation, or well, I guess it's not Funimation anymore, the Crunchyroll official streaming version is, I think.
Okay.
That's the currently I think it's the same version of the movie. But we are both queued up and we're both paused at 1 second, so you should see kind of waves kind of crashing up slightly at rocks as we're about to get into the Toei logo. If that's what you see, then you're pretty ready to go. We don't see the Toei logo yet, we just see waves and rocks.
Normally we wait till after the Toei logo to start the commentary, but there's a reason why we did this. It's a pretty funny one.
Yeah, so get yourself queued up there. I think we've given people an adequate amount of time. And we'll do our 3, 2, 1, go. On go, press play on your space bar, your remote, your mouse, your Xbox controller, your PlayStation controller. I'm trying to think if there's any other devices that I endorse.
Your cell phone, possibly?
Please no. I do not endorse watching movies on your phone.
No, it's like a little app thing on the phone. Never
Oh,
mind.
like your okay. Oh, your Fire Stick.
There you go.
There's another one. Okay, well, That's more than enough time. I'll count us in, and this is a short one.
Very short.
We'll get going in 3, 2, 1, go. And we got the Toei logo popping in here, and you're going to see why in about 3 more seconds, maybe 4. What's the reason why we... Whoop!
That's a rather abrupt start to the movie.
The Toei logo does not fade out like it sometimes does. We just start with Piccolo shrieking. So let's talk about Dragon Ball Z Dead Zone, a.k.a. Dragon Ball Z The Movie, a.k.a. Dragon Ball Z Return My Gohan. It's the 4th Dragon Ball movie and the first under the Dragon Ball Z banner. Originally released in Japan on July 15th, 1989, which is right after the battle against Raditz, so right before the part where Piccolo starts training Gohan and Snake Way and all that, at the Toei Manga Matsuri Film Festival, where it was shown as part of a quadruple feature, along with Himitsu no Akko-Chan's first movie, Akuma-kun, the movie, and Mobile Cop Jiban, the movie. It is directed by Daisuke Nishio, who we've spoken about at length, and written by Takeo Koyama, who we've also spoken about at length. If you want more on those two specifically, refer to our Halo episode and our Don Dracula episode, both from Octobers in the past. Music is once again by Shunsuke Kikuchi. It earned about 1.3 billion yen at the box office, or around about $10 million. And again, contextualizing these, $10 million, not bad at all. As usual, I'll talk briefly about the other 3 films on the bill. And here, so if you're following along, if you've been listening to the podcast, whatever, and you've been following along with us, this is our first encounter with Chala, Head Chala.
Timeless piece of music here.
Yes. So, Himitsu no Akko-Chan is an early magical girl manga written by Fujio Akatsuka, who is probably best known for creating Osamatsu-kun. Osamatsu-kun is the series where the somewhat infamous Shie dance premiered that became a craze in Japan in the 1960s, even permeating the Godzilla franchise. In 1965 was Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, where Godzilla does the Shie dance after beating Ghidra in a scene that somewhat infamously actually made Ishiro Honda step away from being the Godzilla director. He was like, this is for kids now. I can't do this. This is not about nuclear war anymore.
What's the point?
Osamatsu-kun was also an anime that Toriyama himself mentioned having watched as a kid, so one wonders if perhaps he was delighted to find out his franchise was sharing a screen with another entry from that author. Then again, we know he didn't read much manga, so maybe he didn't care, or know. Himitsu no Akko-Chan tells the story of Atsuko Kagami, whose favorite gift from her mother, a beautiful mirror, gets broken, and rather than throw it out, she decides to bury it, which causes a magical mirror spirit to be touched and teach her mirror magic. It received 3 different anime adaptations and 2 animated films, as well as a live-action film in 2012. Akuma-kun is a manga from author Shigeru Mizuki, best known for Gegege no Kitaro, and which has several different adaptations in manga alone, but the common plot threads are that a young boy is a child demonology prodigy who wants humans to create a happy utopia through the use of the power of demons. There's 3 different manga versions, a live-action series, an anime series, and a Netflix animation series. There's even a video game that was released for Famicom in 1990, which is another one of those turn-based RPGs, like the couple of Dragon Ball games we've seen like that. Mm-hmm. And then Mobile Cop Jiban is the 8th entry in the Metal Hero franchise that began with Space Sheriff Gavan, or Gavan. Gavan is, I think, somewhat recently available on home video here in America, along with Sherivan and Scheider and maybe Metalder. I honestly don't know. There's so many literal hundreds of Japanese tokusatsu hero shows that I can ever so barely keep track of their existence at all, let alone what's available and where. Nevertheless, I do know that Gavan is available, so Jiban is either coming or already out. Like I said, there's just too much in this genre to keep track of, and I am already like on top of Dragon Ball and Godzilla and Ultraman. And sort of kind of Kamen Rider. Metal Hero is a bit of a blind spot. Sorry. Jiban is basically like a weekly RoboCop, is my understanding of it.
I mean, honestly, that sounds like a pretty sweet show. I would watch that. I do think we need to contractually make sure every commentary has a Toei Manga Matsuri refresher, both to pad runtime and because you never know which episode will be a listener's first. So this is a Toei Cartoon Festival that was established in 1969 as a way to showcase popular anime series as theatrical films during breaks in the Japanese school year, so like spring, summer, and winter vacation. It's a 2-week to 1-month event where a double or triple or even quadruple bill would play, lasting about 3 hours usually. It's basically like a commercial for all the series that featured as films on the bill, trying to get kids into those shows. And every Dragon Ball movie up until 2013 premiered at one of these festivals. If you want to know more, you can refer to our Curse of the Blood Rubies commentary, where we go into the history, or hopefully by now we've got some usable audio out of one of the panels that we've done on Dragon Ball movies, where we discuss this at length with more information about its origins. You can check that out as well. But again, remembering that these were basically ads sort of masquerading as films, their box office takes were modest but not bad, generally bringing in quite a bit more than what the ad revenue of a TV episode would be. The minimal incremental cost over producing it, generally bringing in quite a bit more than what the ad revenue on a TV episode would be, with minimal incremental cost over producing a TV episode. So our Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle commentary delved into the financials behind these Matsuri films. On the production side, Chiaki Yamada is back once again, who we discussed is sort of a founding father of Toei and the Toei Manga Matsuri Festival.
Oh, let me interrupt real quick. This is a famous meme right here, where Chi-Chi says they came and took Gohan, and in the meme, Goku says, Gohan? Who's Gohan? What's for dinner?
Classic. So yeah, Chiaki Yamada does the whole Toei Manga Matsuri thing, and for more on him, you can check out also, once again, the Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle commentary. We've also got Minoru Maeda back for animation direction as well as character design work, and 2 big thumbs up to him from me on this one. This is one of the more gorgeous movies that they've ever put out. Mm-hmm. And under art direction, we have Yuji Ikeda, also, again, 2 big thumbs up. We couldn't find anything about Ikeda except that he did art direction for a number of Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump films and a whole slew of other Toei anime films in series, including Naruto Shippuden, the movie, Bonds, Yu Yu Hakusho Ghost Files, which is another great show, Ninja Scroll, the series, which is pretty good but hyper violent, and Perfect Blue, which I'm not familiar with. Working on the planning side was Kozo Morishita, who we haven't spoke about too much yet.
And let's talk about him now. He's going to be someone we probably talk about more in the future as well, as he was the main producerial mind behind Dragon Ball GT. Uh-oh. But let's learn something new instead of just rehashing our prior commentaries.
Hey, you're the one that wrote these notes.
And I'm giving myself the good parts, but making it seem like conversational.
Totally unappreciated in my time.
Aren't we all? Anyway, Morishita was born on July 17th, 1948, and is from Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan's Chibu, or Central Region, on the main island of Honshu. He joined Toei in 1970 in the production department, where he worked until 1988 when he became a producer in the planning department. I don't know what all that means, but it's just what he did.
Sounds impressive.
In November of 1998, he was named head of the planning and sales department and chief producer of the planning group. From there, he would receive regular promotions through various levels of management, directorship, and vice presidencies until he became the chairman of the board for Toei in 2014. In 2014, a position he retired from in 2020, only to be named the CEO of Toei Animation in 2022. Morishita was the pupil of Tomoharu Katsumata, the director of a bunch of early Toei animations of manga, notably Devilman, Mazinger Z, Cutie Honey, Fist of the North Star, Tiger Mask, and Wolf Boy Ken, a series that was actually somewhat instrumental in helping launch the Toei Matsuri Film Festival. He inherited Katsumata's action-oriented style, focusing on long shots but fast directing. The good old stand around and stare, then a flurry of activity. That's Morishita's thing. He directed various episodes of shows Toei were releasing, such as Tiger Mask and UFO Robot Grendizer, and though these shows were marginally successful, toy sales lagged behind what Toei wanted. Still, it was enough to give Morishita the nickname Robo Morishita in industry circles. He received invitations from Disney and Marvel to meet with them, and took them up on those offers when he came stateside for his honeymoon. I'm sure his wife loved that. And before we get into too much, here's a big editing censorship thing with this movie right here. In the Japanese version, this piece of fruit that Gohan eats makes him drunk. And then we get an insert song that is like pure nonsense. And this whole sequence here kind of reminds me of, I don't know about you, a little bit of the pink elephants part of Dumbo.
Absolutely, yes.
And in the English version, in both English versions, it says like that it just makes you weird. I think in the original English dub, like the Ocean Group dub, it says weird, and in the modern dub, it says it makes you see things. But it doesn't say that it makes you drunk, but it clearly is making him drunk.
We got to think of the children here.
So when Morishita visited Disney and Marvel, they asked him to relocate and help make a cartoon that was like G.I. Joe, but with robots. But he declined the offer as he felt his English wasn't good enough. Still, he offered to help work on this new robot series, and going back and forth overseas wound up helping to create Transformers.
Oh.
Though there were challenges in the directing, the differing methods between U.S. work practices and those in Japan, especially in animation, Transformers obviously becomes a hit, leading ultimately to a future film for which Morishita lived in the U.S. for 6 months to help oversee the production. In an interview I read, he noted that the amount of hand-drawn detail in the movie was unprecedented at the time, and initially, the American production team was hesitant about the project, but he created a pilot film completely in the style he was aiming for in the movie, and when he showed it at the screening room at Warner Brothers, the studio heads were all so impressed they made him run the reel again, and again, and again. All told, he showed it to them 5 times in a row. He also noted in this interview that he wound up receiving criticism from the production team for not spending all of his budget, but he was unsure what even to spend it on. He was living in the U.S., and the production was paying for his apartment, his food, his interpreter, even his alcohol, and he felt like he couldn't spend money fast enough. He was just constantly spending money, and they were like, "You're not spending enough." And he's like, what do you want?
I mean, I could think of a few things, but they're probably not family appropriate.
Morishita also said he became friends with the film's credited director Nelson Shin, and they remain in touch. Morishita took the lessons he learned from Transformers and working with U.S. crews in general back to Japan and applied it to Saint Seiya, overseeing a massive spike in popularity for that property. And then in 1989, as Saint Seiya ended, he became the planner behind Dragon Ball as it transitioned into Dragon Ball Z. We mentioned a while back, I think in our Torishima episode, not 100% sure, how Kazuhiko Torishima was at least partly responsible for the shift in style between Dragon Ball and Z that caused the show's explosion in popularity. Morishita is kind of the other part. He brought a different sense of style to the proceedings and focused in on the action more. In 2011, Morishita made his feature film directorial debut, adapting an Osamu Tezuka manga, Buddha, with Buddha, The Great Departure, but said directing didn't suit him and returned more to producing, where he was more comfortable. By the sounds of things, it seems like he's more comfortable with what the U.S. considers animation directors do than in Japan, which is probably unsurprising when you consider his career's biggest successes. He said he only took on the role of director because at the time he was the only one at Toei Animation who knew how to make a classic feature-length film like the ones that used to close the Toei Manga Matsuri. He's worked on Saint Seiya, Dragon Ball, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Tiger Mask, Dr. Slump, and Dragon Quest over the course of his career, but he believes his work on Transformers the movie is why he wound up being so successful ultimately, as it allowed him to break the conventions of shonen manga adaptations and bring something new to the table. One little piece of trivia. Morishita's main pupil was Shigeyasu Yamauchi, who people might know as the director of the 1989-1990 Devilman anime, many episodes of Dragon Ball Z, and One Piece. Morishita has given some interviews over the years about GT, so we can maybe talk more about him, or at least glean information from him when the time to discuss GT rolls around.
But we're not there yet, thank God.
Not just yet.
So as with everything early Dragon Ball, the music is composed by Shinsuke Kikuchi, the debut of his 10th music package for the franchise. We'll kick the Kikuchi can down the road once again. We've got years and years of Dragon Ball to get through, and it'll only be a matter of time before we delve into Kikuchi. We'll also not delve overly deep into the American composer of the film, Mark Menza, as he gave us some GT talking points as well in the future, being the composer of that series, taking over from the Bruce Faulconer team at the end of Dragon Ball Z. Of course, there's some discrepancy about whether Menza actually scored this movie or not. If the score was composed by Nathan Johnson, who scored several other Dragon Ball Z movies and portions of the show. But we also saved talking about him for another day. At least note that we pointed out there's confusion over who actually composed the replacement American score for this movie. Those signs actually point to Johnson rather than Menza, despite Menza being credited for the release. For starters, we know that crediting on this release is iffy. We'll have another example in a moment. Also, Menza was credited on Fusion Reborn and Wrath of the Dragon, despite Johnson scoring those films, and Johnson was the person who composed the scores for all of the other Ultimate Uncut Special Edition movie releases Funimation did beginning in 2005. We should also note, however, that based on interviews given, Johnson hasn't corrected those who've listed his credits without including this movie, so it's kind of a jumbled mess.
Yeah, also because these guys don't always know what movie they're working on necessarily.
Yeah, they were working on so many things in such a quick fashion that it all bleeds together for them in a lot of cases.
And pay attention to the animation here. Also, first of all, this animation here is like a little different style from the movie, and I think it's cool. Where you see Garlic Sr. getting trapped. We're going to have a note on this thing that he gets trapped in.
It's coming up. So, to discuss the various releases of the movie, as Menza or Johnson's score only debuted in 2005 with Funimation's in-house redub of the film, whereas the original dub from 1997 done by the Ocean Group cast kept the original music, making it the first dub from Funimation to not feature a replacement score. Also on this music note, this is the only Dragon Ball Z movie to feature the ending theme from the TV show as its ending theme music. All other movies have original songs as their ending themes. Now, we can hear you thinking, Funimation dub, you just said it was the Ocean Group. Well, yeah, but listen here, dummy. Funimation was always in charge of the release of Dragon Ball, even in the years of the Ocean Group dub. During those years, they just outsourced the dubbing. We'll probably talk about this more and more over time, but when Funimation first got the rights to release Dragon Ball Z in North America, they partnered with Saban Entertainment to finance and distribute the series. They sub-licensed home video distribution to Pioneer Entertainment, so parenthetically, if you ever hear anyone talking about the Pioneer releases, just know those are also Funimation releases, technically. Funimation also contracted Ocean to dub the show, and Saban took charge of recording a new score. This situation lasted for 67 episodes, which were so heavily edited due to Saban's involvement, they removed any overly violent and bloody moments and any mentions of death and any inappropriate humor. And they were eventually cut down to 53 episodes of dub. By the time Dragon Ball Z found an audience, Saban had pulled out of the partnership, and Funimation, low on cash and unable to afford the Ocean Group team anymore, had to bring the dub in-house if they wanted to keep working on it. We once again have all kinds of crazy dubbing here, with there being an Ocean Group dub, a Big Green dub, and a Funimation in-house dub. The Big Green dub is so slipshod, it left in Toshio Furukawa's voice during the parts of the movie where Piccolo is screaming. The Big Green or AB group dub is a long mock dub called Big Green because that's what they renamed Piccolo in the movie. And we've briefly talked about this in the past, but definitely need to discuss further that in the future. Also, as we mentioned on our Mystical Adventure commentary, Speedy Video released this without creating a dub of their own, as far as anyone is really aware. One last releasing note: the Funimation redub credits Chris Sabat as Ox King in the credits, but it's actually Kyle Hebert, who has played the character since Funimation started in-house dubbing. Also, the Funimation re-release dubbed the Ultimate Uncut Special Edition was originally actually more heavily edited than the Pioneer Entertainment release in terms of percentage of movie edited, as the opening animation was entirely different. This was subsequently corrected on box sets and double feature releases and digital releases as well. But if you have that initial uncut, Ultimate Uncut Special Edition, you have a unique release of the movie. So always buy physical media, folks. You never know when it'll be important or interesting.
Exactly. And my tenuous sort of kind of Godzilla reference comes in here on all the topic of all these crazy dubs and releases. As if you're a Dragon Ball fan and you're a longtime Dragon Ball fan, you know this. You know that there's like 1,000 different releases of this and that they all have slightly different dubs or scores, or if you're reading the manga, like there's different translations. This is just not uncommon at all for Japanese properties brought to the US all the way up until like the 2000s. Companies would bring movies over and in one way or another just absolutely butcher them, replacing voice casts, creating their own unique versions, replacing scores, and all kinds of jiggery pokery. That makes it difficult to track down all the versions of the movies over the years, and even more difficult for a company to release them then. This isn't unique to Dragon Ball then. And when it came time for Criterion, Criterion's a major company. They released a complete set of Godzilla films from 1954 to 1974. A lot of the versions that people grew up with were not included due to the intricacies of licensing, whether real or imagined by Toho. The biggest casualty there was that the release of Mothra vs. Godzilla doesn't have the American version, which features the only scene ever filmed by Toho that was only ever shown outside of Japan. It has a frontier missile sequence that features the U.S. Navy bombing Godzilla on Japanese soil. I could talk a lot about these odd contracts and licenses and release strategies with a slew of Japanese properties, and especially with Dragon Ball too. And we'll probably have to do like a whole podcast someday about the history of Dragon Ball on home video because it's a mess. Much like Godzilla, you can't get the version of Dragon Ball that you'd want to see on an official home video release. I know my perfect version is some sort of weird Frankenstein of like Falconer music with the Japanese cast, with the more accurate subtitles, with sometimes Kikuchi music. Like I would have to Frankenstein it together.
That sounds amazing. Get on an internet, nerds. Somebody build that clip.
What's been given to us is always just mangled in some way due to all these licensing and rights complexities and companies taking music and not necessarily having the rights to that music, and it's just insane. As for translations, the subtitles on this release are Steve Simmons translations and not dub titles, and we'll talk about Steve sometime in the future too, but he did a lot of translation work for Dragon Ball over the years and generally takes care to try to translate in a way that keeps the spirit of the original meaning of things while localizing them in a way that regional audiences would understand. It's the good kind of translation where you're not just doing it directly. You're localizing it and translating it, but still managing to keep it meaning all the same stuff.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah, maybe. It's just the right way to do it, though.
I agree.
This movie is like almost half over, by the way.
Man, it's a quick one.
And we've had some great fight sequences. Have we had the one yet? I've been looking up and down at my notes. I don't think we've had the one quite yet where Goku's fighting with his power pole.
No, not yet. It's coming up, though.
It's coming up real soon. That's a great Great bit of animation. But let's pivot away from all that nonsense about releases and stuff and talk about things in the actual movie. Since the movie's almost half over.
Makes sense.
Or over half over. This movie is one of the only Dragon Ball Z movies to really feature in the show itself, not only with the eventual Garlic Jr. filler arc, but also with recycled animation used in flashbacks. These appear throughout the Garlic Jr. arc itself, but the point being it's stock footage actually from this movie brought into the show. However, Garlic Jr. is not the only movie villain to appear in a Dragon Ball show, as Cooler appears in the Super 17 arc of Dragon Ball GT. And of course, Beerus and the characters of that film and the film Resurrection F, who all made their debut in films, end up appearing in Dragon Ball Super. I don't know if we count those, though. And once again, I just had a note. In the American versions, all of them, rather than Gohan getting drunk, he gets weird or hallucinates. And here's the sword fight. It's so good.
Excellent choreography.
Yes.
So, taking a look at some of the characters here, let's start with Garlic Jr., even though he's not currently on screen right now. The pun should be self-evident, and we'll talk about some of his minions and what spices and seasonings they're named after too, but adding a layer to Garlic Jr.'s punny name is that he's designed to look like a vampire, an ironic play on garlic being a weakness of a vampire. You may have also noticed that Garlic Jr. looks an awful lot like Emperor Pilaf. So did the voice acting staffs, as he's played by Chuck Huber in the Funimation dub, who also voices Pilaf. And when it comes time for the Garlic Jr. saga in Japan, he's voiced by the Pilaf voice actor Shigeru Chiba. In this movie, he's voiced by Akira Kamiya, the voice of Kenshiro in Fist of the North Star, Shotaro Mendo in Urusei Yatsura, and Tama Saburo in Pompoko. I managed to get through that without tripping it up. Hooray. And a whole slew of other characters across TV and film stretching from 1972 present. He couldn't return for the TV series due to scheduling conflicts. So, moving on to Garlic Jr.'s henchmen, who've all now been thoroughly butt-kicked. Ginger is an obvious pun, but Sancho and Nikki might be less obvious. Sancho is the Japanese name for Sichuan pepper, and the dub staff simply retained it. Fun fact about this character, 3 different people voice him in the big green dub. Nikki, meanwhile, is also a retention of the Japanese name, but rather than being a proper name in Japanese as it is in English, it actually means cinnamon. Also, Little Nicky is a nickname for the Antichrist in Christian mythology. This comes from an old English colloquialism for the devil, calling him Old Nick, which first appeared recorded in the 17th century and whose origins are unclear, but many are connected to various Germanic languages using Nick as a prefix for various dangerous supernatural creatures. These creatures are named things like, and I'm going to speak very slowly and concisely here so as not to be mistaken, Nickwus and Nick Ear and Nick Orr. And so if there's all these creatures named Nick something, then Old Nick would be sort of the master of all the Nicks, and Little Nicky would be his son. Garlic's seal, the crystal that he's stuck inside, appears to be a small stellated dodecahedron, a polyhedron whose earliest known appearance in visual media is in the mid-1400s as a mosaic from painter and mathematician Paolo Uccello on the floor of the San Marco Cathedral in Venice. It was rediscovered as a mathematical shape of interest by German astronomer and mathematician Johann Kepler in the 1600s, and was also incorporated into M.C. Escher's work Gravitation. So this is a shape that has been seen as having some artistic and perhaps even religious intrigue, but in terms of practical applications, studying dodecahedra can assist with studying viruses, chemistry and mineralogy, meteorology and climatology, and in puzzles and entertainment such as Rubik's Cubes and polyhedral dice. Liquid crystal technology also makes use of studying these types of geometric shapes and has won people Nobel Prizes. So look at that. There's a connection between Dragon Ball and Nobel Prizes.
Yeah.
Should we be surprised?
We'll get a Nobel Prize winner on here someday.
It's guaranteed at this point.
There's also the Dead Zone itself, as we're winding down in the last 10 minutes of this movie and winding down on our notes. We're going to see the Dead Zone pop up in a moment.
Krillin's had his strongest Z fighter.
We're We're gonna see that dead zone pop up, and this is what is that trope hoisted by their own petard or whatever?
Yes, hoisted by their own petard.
Yeah, Garlic is gonna invoke the dead zone, and which okay, because we're basically out of notes, so let's talk about it for a second. He's gonna invoke the dead zone. Why? Because he's immortal. Who cares if he fights for days?
Mm-hmm. I don't. It's one of those things that it just doesn't really make sense on its face, but it's just purely poetic. Because why? Like, if he's so much stronger than these two, why not just beat them to a pulp and be done with it? Like, what's the point of opening the dead zone to throw them in it? I don't understand.
Well, and he's clear. He's not stronger than them. Actually, when they actually work together, they are stronger than him. But he's close.
Immortal.
He's close to as strong as them, so he's immortal. But he's immortal, so like just wait them out.
Yeah, you like just wear them down, win through attrition, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I would feel like the dead zone should be a thing that they conjure up. You know, like that.
That would make. But see, no, that's what we're expecting, and they wanted to subvert our expectations. See, we thought he was a master planner this whole time, but in actuality, he's an idiot.
So yeah, the dead zone itself, there's this possibility that it's a riff on the Phantom Zone as seen in Superman comics over the years, first appearing in the 1960s and then gaining popularity with its appearance in Richard Donner's Superman 2 in 1980. The Phantom Zone is a prison-like parallel dimension where Superman and occasionally other heroes throw villains that can't be either killed or contained otherwise. With the resurgent popularity of the Phantom Zone in the 1980s due to the massively popular live-action Superman movies starring Christopher Reeve, it's plausible that the anime staff took a cue from something popular at the time to come up with an idea for Dragon Ball. I could totally buy that.
I mean, artists always take and reinterpret each other's stuff all the time. It would not surprise me one bit.
And this movie, now I like this movie because of knowing what these movies are, right? Knowing that these movies are just meant to be showcases for here's like what to expect out of Dragon Ball Z. Here's some fun for 40 minutes. Like this absolutely nails that. But I will say, I think this movie is probably one of the big reasons why so much of the conversation around these movies is generally wrong-headed, right? With people talking about them like they are real movies, people talking about them like, oh, I wonder what it would have been like to see this in theaters, or I can't believe they released this in theaters, and things like that, because this winds up being in the show. And because Garlic Jr. winds up being in the show, a lot of people are like, oh, well, the movies must matter to the
really
show.
Good shots of destruction here, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Just, again, wanting to highlight that this is a pretty movie to look at.
Right. But that's like that. That's my whole, like, something, you know, people, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like unfair comparisons, right? So,
right.
Because the way I'm looking at this is like, this is them basically saying like, this is what our TV show would look like if we had time and budget. And I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. But yeah, to like make the comparison that it's the same as any other movie that gets released in the theaters. It's definitely like missing the forest for the trees on this one.
And I think it's caused by Garlic Jr. appearing in the show. And people think, oh, these movies all matter in terms of the show. And it's really more just like, these movies are like, they're ads for the show. Yes, I do think the best ones, in which this is like one of the better ones, are here's what the show would look like with a budget. But even like the cheaper, worse ones, they're like, I'll actually rephrase that. Even the ones that look really good, like the ones that look really good are almost like they're almost like the team working on them didn't understand the assignment and it's like that hey, we're just doing a little fun anime movie, you don't need to go that hard.
And they're like, oh, okay. Proceeds to blow people's minds.
Exactly. And so I think like because I've seen a lot of people be like, "This movie's so short, it doesn't do." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's what it's like supposed to be." Like,
Yeah, I think a lot of that contextual information actually helps increase the enjoyment of the thing, especially in cases like this.
yeah, because this movie is super thin on plot. It is Garlic Jr. shows up, he kidnaps Gohan because he wants the Dragon Ball, and it's I don't know, just easier to grab him because he won't let go of the ball. And then he
I
makes
feel like them taking it from a kid should have been pretty easy.
it should.
And then I actually kind of want to see what this movie would be like if the plot point was they just stole Gohan's hat.
I
Like
think
if they didn't steal Gohan, what happens?
I think then you could like that's I guess if I want to talk about a way that you could sort of redo this movie such that it would make more sense in the timeline of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, because where it really clashes is this movie introduces Gohan and has Gohan and Krillin and Piccolo all hanging out, but then in the show when Krillin and Gohan meet, it's like the first time that they've met.
That's just a minor plot hole.
If you wanted
no big deal.
If you wanted to fix that and actually like now I know when they were making this movie, they weren't thinking that they would ever make Garlic Jr. part of the show. That was a thing that happened because they got way too tight on time gap between the anime and the manga releasing. But if you wanted to rewrite this, I would just like either leave Gohan entirely out and not even mention him at all, and or just show him as like a baby, and have Goku like find out that his grandpa's Dragon Ball was stolen, and that's he goes to go get that back, and then it turns out that it's this bad guy that he has to fight. And then you could leave pretty much the whole movie the same, and you maybe have, I don't know, Piccolo do, or you have like Krillin do like a solar flare to defeat Garlic Jr., or Piccolo and Goku work together to defeat Garlic Jr., and then that's it, right?
Yeah, and you already have Kami there, so you could even switch it up so that instead of Garlic Jr. opening up the Dead Zone, which is a colossal, horribly bad move, technically speaking, you could have Kami do it instead.
Right.
Because, hey, we already sealed away his father. Let's do the same thing for him.
Again, they had no idea when they were doing this that they would ever make one of these movies, for lack of a better word, canon. But that's the way I would just kind of leave Gohan out of this so that this could be an adventure that happens between the end of Dragon Ball and the beginning of Z.
Sure. Yeah, I think it would probably work really well that way.
But that's not what happens.
That's all right. I mean, they as we've talked about many times, there's just certain characters they just up and forget exist most of the time. So I feel like it's splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah, but and then we're about out of here. I mean,
that's it. That's pan up credits time, right?
Pretty much. And yeah, I like it for what it is, right? This is, again, we like the further we get into this, the more I start thinking of these movies as like, hey, if I were ever just to want to revisit a part of Dragon Ball without having to watch all of it, could I watch one of these movies? And I think this one definitely, like this movie fits as like a between just prior to Z starting type of thing.
Yeah. The other ones that come after this are a little bit harder to place.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, no, this one is definitely one of those ones where, with like some slight tweaking, we could absolutely get it to fit perfectly in the whole continuity. And it's a really good bookend for Dragon Ball and starting point for Dragon Ball Z because it's showcasing all of the differences in tone, the change in art style, and it's just setting you up like, here, we're going to be starting Dragon Ball Z, and this is what it's going to be.
Yeah, if you haven't watched the first, I guess at this point, by the time this movie came out, if you haven't watched the first 8 or 10 episodes of Dragon Ball Z, here's what you're missing. Better get on it, you know?
Yeah. So I say it's entertaining for one, so that's always a plus in my book. And it definitely does what they set out to do with it, which is, it's like you just said, it's a great way to showcase like, hey, here's this show, you should probably watch it if you like this. And then just from a technical standpoint, I think it's one of the more solid movies. It's just got gorgeous art. The voice casts are pretty good. The music's pretty good. And just the overall tonal shift from Dragon Ball puts it more in the ballpark of stuff that I tend to like.
Yeah. So, out of 7 Dragon Balls, what do you give Dragon Ball Z Dead Zone?
I give it a solid 6. Not quite perfect, because like you said, it's a little thin on plot, but everything else either makes up for it or is competent enough where it's not really much of a downside.
That's pretty solid. You're making good arguments. You're making me feel like I want to go from a 5 to a 6.
No. Stick true to yourself.
But I think I'll go to a 5. I do really like it. I think there's movies both within the Z era of these movies being a little bit thin that have slightly better plot for me. I'm thinking like it's been a while, so maybe I'm wrong, but like Tree of Might, and I like the ending shot of this with Gohan
in the Wukong getup.
Son Wukong getup, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's probably movies that I like a little. Like I think Tree of Might has like a slightly better plot, if I remember correctly. World's Strongest. I'm wondering if there's any others. I've only ever seen, and I know like they're 2 of the more popular ones, Wrath of the Dragon and Fusion Reborn. I've only ever seen those 2 once each, like 20 years ago. So I'm thinking there's movies that probably have slightly more to offer than this one. So I will stick with a 5, but I think that's pretty strong still. I think this is a 5 out of 7 Dragon Balls. That's like your 3.5 out of 5 type of movie. This is you're not going to get deep plot, but I also think that's okay. Like I think this movie references so little of what's happening in Dragon Ball in any way that you don't have to be a Dragon Ball fan to dig this one.
I get that. And it's so action-packed that, I mean, do we really need much of a plot?
Right. So that's Dragon Ball Z Dead Zone. That's a quick one. But
a good one.
But yeah, pretty fun one. So...
Okay, so we're starting a new adventure. Do you think we can get some new material this year?
We'll have plenty of new material, Recruit. We got a slew of heretofore undiscussed by us Dragon Ball Z, including manga, anime, movies, games, possible guest interviews, new panels to present at conventions, creators to profile, and so much more.
Okay, but again, that's not what I meant.
Well, again, there's no time to figure out what you meant.
Why?
Because it's time for the sign-off.
Fine. Another year of this.
Listen, don't worry about it. It's going to be a great year. What exciting adventures await us this year? Will we finally find Earth? Find out next time and help us achieve our final forum.
Final Form is written and produced by Tom Gwelly. It is performed by Dan Kinney and Tom Gwelly. Our webmaster is Dan Kinney. Our theme music is provided by YouTube content creator GVG Kit. Want to learn more about the Dragon Ball universe, including concept art, behind-the-scenes interviews, and recommendations from Jelli and Bekinney? Connect with us on social media. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Final Forum Pod. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you receive your podcasts. And of course, make sure to share it with your friends and family and help us spread the word of the glory of Lord Frieza. The Frieza Force thanks you for your listenership.